Hello and welcome to the NR426 video for Lesson 3A. In this half of Lesson 3, we'll be getting into listing and iterating through spatial data. We'll talk about the various arcpy list methods, so how we can list feature classes or rasters or fields or files, and then how we can put that into a loop to actually batch process tools in a loop. In the second half in Lesson 3B, we'll get more into describe and then putting it all together. All right, so let's get into it. One of the most common workflows with Python is to batch process your data. And so you don't want to have to manually enter in every feature class name. You don't want to have to run 14 different buffer tools and type it in by hand. What you want to be able to do is just point to a location, point to a folder, point to a geodatabase, and say, hey, grab all the feature classes in there and buffer them. Grab all of the point data and check that they have the right coordinate system, and then do something to them in another tool. And so that's what the list methods allow you to do. So there are several, and they're listed here on the right. So you can list datasets, feature classes. The most common ones are feature classes, fields, rasters, tables, maybe workspaces. Workspaces would be nice if you wanted to do like a walk through and dig into the subfolders. So that's kind of a handy one for that. So there are a lot of them available, but you probably won't use about half of them. And the way the list methods work is you call the method, so arcpy.listFields, for example. You supply the arguments that are needed for that particular list method, and what it gives you back is a list. So a list object, just like the one that you would create by hand typing it in and putting it in square brackets, but now it's created for you using this method, and then you can loop through it with the for loop. And so a couple of caveats to this. For the most part, most of these list methods require that you have a workspace set. So it'll ask you for some parameters, but like for list feature classes, the location that you want to list is not actually in the syntax of the list method. That has to be defined up above. So here are a couple of examples, and we'll look at the help in just a second. Here we're looking at list feature classes, which is probably the most common one that you will use, or maybe list rasters. So the way it works is you just call arcpy.listFeatureClasses, and then there are some arguments that you can put in the parentheses here, but if you leave it empty, what it will do is just return all the feature classes in that workspace, regardless of wildcard or what they're called or what type of data it is. And then on the left, see that we're calling it fclist equals this because the method will return a list, and we want to grab what it returns as a variable, and that is a list object, and then we can loop through fclist with a for loop. So let's take a look at the help. I'm going to click the link here. And the link will take us right here, but you can also just go to the general Python help. So if you're just in the general ArcGIS Pro Python help, you can do a search up here. And like I've mentioned a couple times, it helps if you search the actual, what you would type into Python. So we're looking for the list feature classes method. So if I type it in all as one word, it will find it really easily. If you type it in as separate words, it won't find it as easily. So there it is. Great. So now you can see a little bit more about the method. We jump right into the syntax and then an explanation of the different parameters that the syntax calls for. So here's our method name, list feature classes, and notice that there are 3 parameters and they are all optional, which is why we're allowed to leave it blank. It will still work if we leave it blank. It just means that we're not going to filter it in any way. Each of these 3 parameters allow us to do some type of filter. So the first one would be the wildcard, which is explained here. So the wildcard is just a way to filter it by characters, like what letters it contains. So for example, if you only wanted to get feature classes that started with a certain letter, you could do C** and then it would only get things that start with the letter C. Feature type is the next one, and this is a pretty common one to use. So let's say you want to create a list of only the point feature classes in a folder. So you can filter by feature type, and you would actually type in point as that argument in the syntax. So there are a dozen or so different feature types here. I guarantee the only ones you'll probably ever use will be line, point, and polygon. Polyline and line return the same thing. There's also an all option. All is simply the same as leaving it blank. It'll just return anything no matter what the feature type. And then the third argument or third parameter is feature data set, and that's just to dig into a feature data set if you wanted to. So let's go back to the slides. Or actually, sorry, there's some code samples. Like all of our help, we have code samples, and I think as you have been discovering in class, the help is fantastic. So use these code samples, copy and paste it into PyCharm, and then modify it with your own data. So they really are quite helpful to explain how it works and then to show you different ways it could work. In this code sample, look how we have os.path.join, and we're splitting it. So they're actually showing you some other ways to pass in the variable or the string or the name of what you want to call your output, and how to generate your output path and output data name. So they often have other really great examples in here. So here's os.path.join again, and they're taking the workspace and they are putting it into a subfolder, I think, or a feature data set here. So yeah, use these help documents to your advantage. Now that we've seen that, let's come back to the slide. Now we can see what these things are. So FC list, if we leave it blank, it'll just return everything. We're not making any filter. We can also do, in quotation marks, asterisk, comma, all, both as strings. That is the same as leaving it blank. They're the same thing. And then down below, here are some examples of how we could limit it. In this first example, we are not providing a wildcard. We're just giving it an asterisk. So we're looking for any feature class, no matter what characters are in the name of that feature class. And then the second one here, we're filtering by polygon. So we're only going to return polygon types. And then the second one here lists rasters. Here we are providing a wildcard, and we're doing C asterisk, so that will get everything that starts with C. If you did asterisk C, then it would get anything that ends with the letter C. So you can play around with those filters. All right, we're going to hop into a demo. First, we'll do a basic demo, and then we'll take a deeper look at some of the other list methods like list fields and list files.